So you have two oscillators, which you can either frequency modulate, or what I really love, it's one of my favorite ways of generating sound is, not like in the classic way where you take an oscillator that has a lot of overtones and then you shape it with a filter, but instead here you start with a very simple oscillator, like a sine with a sine shape, and then you add overtones by folding it over itself. So that's one of the great features of the Volca modular. And two other aspects that I really love about this is you have dual LPGs, so you have basically an element in the synthesizer where it's not just a VCA or it's not a filter, but it's both combined. So over the response time of the volume curve, you also have a reduction of the overtones. So I think this is just a super useful tool for getting a lot of expression out of a sound. And then another tool I really like is another element of the Volca FM that I really, Volca modular that I really like is the vogel, the vogel element up here, which is basically a stepped random voltage, or it's like a sample and hold. But what's cool is you have one stepped output and you have another output that is smooth. So you have like a random element, but you can decide how you want to address it. So what I just did is the first thing, I selected a scale. I used the Japanese pentatonic for that, and then I just had first a very simple arpeggio going up and down the scale. Later on I would switch to the stochastic mode, which was more like, gives you some randomness to the sequence and gives more interesting variations. And then I would modulate certain parameters. So I would take, it's really clever, you have different subdivisions of the master clock. So I could just take like the master clock divided by 2 or the master clock divided by 4, and then use this to trigger 2 of the functions. So the functions are also very interesting. One has the parameters attack and release, and the other one is shape and time. So it's not just a classic ADSR, but you can do very interesting things, like, for instance, if you patch the end of the shape into the trigger of the shape, you can actually program an LFO with it. And yeah, I did like a lot of crazy frequency modulation and wave folding. I was also automating this, and then of course, how can you not love a good spring reverb? That's also, I think, a very essential part of this spacey sound. And I could also use one of the vogel CV outs to control the amount, so it would sometimes get really wide and then sometimes would get really dry. And again, this is a great element of randomness that you can just add to your sequence. And I think this is a great tool for just hitting start. I mean, first of all, the great thing is you have a CD sync in and CV in, so you can just synchronize it to your master clock in the workstation, hit start, just play around, patch it, and then in the end, just whatever you recorded, get the best 16 bars out of it. This is a great tool that lends itself to improvisation, I think.